This is very concerning.
Ohio Congressman Mike Turner serves on the House Intelligence Committee. He contributed to the new report, which Devin Nunes broke here a few weeks ago. Congressman, thanks for being here. Was this a bioweapon?
Well, it certainly could have been. And, you know, Maria, even if you just look at this intuitively, where the Wuhan lab is undertaking this type of research, it's in Wuhan, the virus comes from Wuhan. It's not like the lab is in Wuhan, the virus comes from Shanghai or even Paris. And then you overlay the reports, as you were indicating, that even include perhaps a collaboration between the Wuhan lab and the Chinese military, which are referenced in the House Republican Intelligence Report, which you can see online, dating back to 2012, where there are concerns about the lab's operations and its coordination with the Chinese military.
Let's go through that report. Tell me what strikes you most. I thought it was very interesting that you and your colleagues raised the fact of the activity around the Wuhan lab back in October 2019. And this is something that Tom Cotton raised with us a long time ago, the fact that there was no cell phone activity, no cars, nothing around the Wuhan virology lab in October 2019. They pretty much shut it down. Let's just recognize where we are. We're not talking about bat caves in the suburbs. Right. Wuhan is a major city in China, larger than New York City. No activity for several weeks in October 2019 around the lab.
Right. So if you go to page 12 of the report, it lays out the concerns about the activities that are happening at Wuhan and then the occurrences at the lab right before the virus breaks out and goes worldwide, both for the lack of activity and reports of individuals becoming sick. This really shows, I think, a grave concern of both the activities that were there and raises a concern about U.S. involvement. And then, of course, it goes to the Biden administration being completely unwilling to continue to pursue the original origins of the virus. This is something that the Biden administration is now taking up because of the public outcry, because of the report that's coming from the Republicans in the House Intelligence Committee. But even so, the Biden administration has limited the review to a 90-day time period, indicating that either the Intelligence Committee already has the information and is not providing it, or they want to limit the scope of the review, which is still of grave concern.
Yeah, I mean, look, Secretary Pompeo's team was full of experts, very serious scientists. He had China experts, arms control experts, people who knew weapons, diplomats as well. And yet that investigation was shut down by the Biden administration. President Biden, I believe, has spoken with Xi Jinping a couple of times. He told our Peter Doocy the subject of the origins of coronavirus never came up. It also never came up in the Alaska meeting where U.S. officials were getting schooled by the Chinese Communist Party. Your thoughts on what this is now? All of a sudden, Biden's feeling the walls are closing in. He wants an investigation, which you and your colleagues have already done. Is he just trying to blow this off and once again knock it back to the World Health Organization?
Well, he's already blown it off in a number of ways and indicated that it's not important. I mean, remember, he was uninterested in the origins of the virus, but wanted to give the vaccine of Pfizer and Moderna to China. This is clearly an administration that has no interest in pursuing China. But think about this also. If there had been even an accidental leak from a U.S. lab that had resulted in any sickness whatsoever, you'd have protests around the world in all capitals. It shows really the fear of coming to the conclusion of what China has been doing. But our intelligence community, all the way back to 2010, had been identifying concerns that China had been working on manipulating viruses for biological weapons that could have grave impact worldwide. And we certainly are seeing the effects of this, where unbelievable deaths have occurred and incredible impacts to the economy. The Chinese government needs to be held accountable. Certainly everything points to the Wuhan lab. We need to get to the bottom of it. And certainly the intelligence community needs to be held accountable for bringing forward the information so that we can have a very public debate on holding China accountable.
Well, look, I'm glad you mentioned the vaccine intellectual property, because we've reported on this program for many years the efforts that the CCP has gone through to steal intellectual property from American companies. It costs American companies $600 billion a year. And there's a stack of settlement cases that I know of. So what's your take on what's behind sharing the vaccine secrets with the rest of the world, including China? Tom Cotton told us they've been trying to steal the vaccine secret to success for a year now. Now we're just going to give it away?
Oh, it's crazy. You know, when you think that China and Russia tried to develop vaccines that have turned out to be completely ineffective, and then, you know, our capitalistic system, through the ingenuity that we have, has been able to arrive at a solution that we're seeing its effects across our country, and then have the administration ignore where did the virus come from and its effects on the unbelievable number of lives that we've lost into the economy, and thinking about giving this investment away, especially giving it to China, which should be a blame for what has occurred, is just really unconscionable. And it shows really an attack on our whole pharmaceutical system that has resulted in the only workable solution that has brought this virus under control.
Yeah, I mean, it broadens out to the other questions about why this administration seems to protect China at all costs. There were several companies that were taken off the Donald Trump blacklist, like Xiaomi. That was on a blacklist. Joe Biden took it off because China wanted it off. They were getting pressured from the CCP. They postponed the ban on trading Chinese stocks of companies that are tied to the military. So my question is, why is Joe Biden protecting the Chinese Communist Party? And why is China hiding the origins of coronavirus? I asked the same question to Jamie Metza last weekend on this program. He has a background of Asian history. Here's what he said to the question of why China continues to hide the origins of coronavirus. Watch this.
The reason is, if it turns out, and nobody who, at least who I know, knows, if it turns out that the origin of the pandemic stems from an accidental lab leak followed by a criminal cover-up, the implications for China nationally and globally would be massive. We could even imagine Xi Jinping possibly being overthrown. People all around the world demanding reparations from China and many other things. And that's why the Chinese government will really stop at nothing in its ongoing effort to cover this up.
Your reaction, Congressman?
Yeah, those are excellent points. And it goes back to, just not only the cover-up, but the fact that we're being complicit in aiding China from keeping this a secret. And you can go the next step of even just, there's the accidental leak possibility, but then there's also the nefarious intent. This research has been reportedly tied to the Chinese military and the Wuhan lab for nefarious intent. So you go the next step even, and you get to take the curtain back to see that the Communist Party and the Chinese government, have real threats to the world. In addition to just negligence and an accidental leak, they're clearly doing irresponsible research. They're clearly doing things that put lives at risk. And clearly, this is worldwide, and there should be public worldwide outrage. And certainly, the governments and our government should be stepping up to hold China accountable.
Yeah, Congressman, I want to talk about that because China is a major threat, an adversary for America, and they are boosting their military. Let's take a break and come back and talk about Joe Biden's budget. In his defense budget, it only provides enough funding for 8 new ships. China's Navy already bigger than ours, and its Army quickly catching up. Xi Jinping has to be salivating over this. We will talk about the budget here in the U.S. and Biden's priorities when we come right back. We're talking with Congressman Mike Turner. Stay with us.
You said that it couldn't be done, but you managed to pack a record 1.1 trillion transistors into this chip.
Yeah! Oh, hi. I invested in Invesco QQQ, a fund that invests in the innovators of the NASDAQ 100, like you.
You don't have to be a circuit design engineer to help push progress forward.
Can I hold the chip?
Become an agent of innovation with Invesco QQQ.
I've got moderate to severe plaque psoriasis. Now, there's Skyrizi. With Skyrizi, 3 out of 4 people achieve 90% clearer skin at
.com or by calling 1-800-2468-751. And don't forget to get 35% off your first order as a preferred customer by using discount code Fox News.
Welcome to my deaf family. One of my favorite people together, make sure everybody same opportunities. I want to create a more inclusive and acceptable world for you, and you.
back. We are back with Congressman Mike Turner. He sits on the House Intel and Armed Services Committees. Congressman, I want to ask you about Joe Biden's budget. He dropped his fiscal year 2022 budget on Friday. It includes record spending for nearly every corner of government except defense spending. Can you explain this to us, that China already has a larger Navy than we do, and we're not increasing defense spending substantially? You've got Russia eyeing Ukraine. You've got China eyeing Taiwan. Iran is a whole nother cornerstone issue where he wants to put the U.S. back into the Iran deal. Your thoughts on the budget?
You know, if you ask the American public, their concerns about security right now, they're going to say national security threats from China and Russia, as you just said, Iran, North Korea. And they're also going to identify the border crisis created by the Biden administration. Oddly, those are the two areas where the Biden administration is actually wanting to cut the budget after inflation. So you've got reductions in defense spending, reduction in homeland security, when those are the two crises that we're facing right now. When you look at the out-of-control spending in other areas, it shows that clearly we're robbing from our future security. But China and Russia are fielding new weapons. They're fielding new weapons that are directed at the United States and our capabilities. They're expanding their overall footprint and trying to have world presence and certainly threatening their neighbors. I know our allies and the American public have to be very concerned that this administration believes that our military needs to be scaled down at a time where the threats are scaling up.
Putin says 88% of Russia's nuclear weapons will be modernized by 2022. Nuclear weapons modernized by next year. Are we prepared to stand toe-to-toe against these adversaries?
Absolutely not with the budget that they proposed. I can tell you that in the Armed Services Committee in the House, we certainly are moving forward with modernizing the United States nuclear weapons stockpile. You know, it has been aging for decades. Now that we're looking at Russia and what they have done, they're fielding whole new weapons, whole new capabilities, hypersonics. They're developing weapons that are even nuclear powered that can orbit the Earth and then attack the United States. All the while our president is currently cutting the funds necessary to be able to modernize our military, but even fund advances in our military. We're not going to be able to catch up. And both China and Russia are seeing this as an opportunity to threaten their neighbors, expand their worldwide influence, and, of course, weaken the United States and our allies.
All right, great to see you. Thank you so much, Congressman Mike Turner. Thank you. Coming up, we took a boat ride with the AG of Texas, and not long after our boat ride on the Rio Grande, mass grave sites were uncovered at the park that we sailed right